Hey everyone, and welcome to the channel. Now, if you've been racing on carpet for any period of time, you've probably heard people talking about gluing the sidewalls of your tyres. And I just wanted to put together a short video explaining why we do that and also how we do that. So to start off with the why, gluing the sidewall of your tyre, which is this part of the tyre here, is one of the most effective ways of taking away initial steering from the car without taking away mid-corner steering, or at least without taking away too much mid-corner steering. And what that kind of means overall is that this is pretty much the most effective way of stopping your car from grip rolling. So if you're on a track where the grip is quite high and you've tried all sorts of setup changes and you just can't get to stop the car from flipping when you first turn into a corner, gluing the sidewall of the tyres is absolutely the best way to have a quick fix to solve that. This tyre here, as you might be able to tell from the size of it, is for Tamiya Mini racing. You can also do it on touring car tyres, and I've also got some buggy front tyres here. So in terms of when to glue the sidewalls, or at least which sidewalls to glue, you'll find that 99% of the time the only sidewall you'll end up gluing is the outside sidewall of the front tyre. That's the one that has the most impact. You also have the option of gluing the inside sidewall on the front tyre as well. It takes a little bit extra away, but not very much. But if things grip is very, very high, you might want to consider doing that. Another option as well, possibly, is to even glue the sidewall of the rear tyre. Which might stop even further the grip roll. Although I tend to find that if you've glued the sidewall of the rear tyre, you will end up taking away quite a lot of your traction coming out of the corner. It can make the car very, very skittish. Not something personally that I like, but it might suit your driving style. So if we take a little look at how this old mini tyre has been glued, as you can tell, it's had quite a bit of use just from the mess on the wheel and the wear and tear on the actual tread. There's three main parts of the tyre that I would talk about, which is obviously the sidewall, which is the vertical part of the rubber tyre, the tread, which is the main part that's actually touching the track, and of course this extra area here that you might call the shoulder of the tyre, which is where the sidewall meets the tread of the tyre. And what you'll find when you're gluing your sidewall is that you will need to glue the whole of the sidewall, and you also probably just need to be just getting at least a little bit of glue across the edge of the shoulder here. So as you can possibly just about tell from the reflections, it's not just the sidewall that's being glued, there's just the tiniest bead of glue just going over the shoulder, and that's quite key to getting the right amount of grip removed from the tyre. You'll find as well that sometimes people might even start gluing a few millimeters actually onto the tread of the tyre. That will start to take away a lot of grip, so do that with care because it's quite hard to get the glue back off again once you put it on there. But certainly I would always start by just going over the shoulder just by a fraction of a millimeter when you're gluing the sidewalls. If we take a look at the buggy tyre here, so this is a used Schumacher Splinter tyre, which again has had the sidewall glued for carpet racing just to calm things down. Again, you can hopefully just tell from the reflections that the gluing just goes up on the Splinter. I found you need to go up to this area where the cross pattern kind of forms a continuous line. So any lower than that, it doesn't really have an effect. But once you get the glue up to where there's a continuous line in this waffle pattern at the edge of the tyre, that's where it starts to have an effect, where it starts to stop the car having too much steering. Not something that I'm currently using actually, but it's something useful to have in the pit box if grip is very high and might suit your track better than mine. And if we compare, of course, to the brand new tyres, there is no glue here. And you can just tell normally by feeling there's just a little bit more grip of your finger or thumb just on the rubber there, and once you put your finger or thumb on the super glued sidewall, you find there's almost no grip for your finger or thumb, and that of course is what means that the car doesn't have excessive grip. That glue will touch the track, the carpet, and slide rather than gripping, and that's kind of the point of the whole process. So before I start gluing the sidewall of this tyre here to prepare for the next race meeting, I'll just run through the gluing options that are available to you. Before I talk about the glues that I use, I'll just mention you will see some YouTube videos where people are using quite complicated jigs that will spin the tyre around and allow you to apply very precise amounts of glue to certain diameters. It's not something that I've ever felt the need to invest in or use. I sort of get enough of an effect just by feel and by experimentation. So I'm just going to use feel as my way of applying the correct amount of glue. But to talk about the glues, there's three kinds of glues you might find that you would use. Always going to be using super glue, cyanoacrylate. And I don't have any here currently, but there are some super glues that have a brush applicator. And they're quite useful. They work quite well. Certainly not very messy. There aren't very many options though for glues with the brush applicator, so they're a little bit harder to find. That's probably the main reason why I don't use them very often. And then you've got really alternatives, two different thicknesses of glue. Now this glue here is a thin CA, and that's the one that we normally use for actually attaching the tyre to the wheel. Because it uses capillary action to get into these small gaps and form a strong bond. Now you can use the thin CA for gluing the sidewalls, but the main problem I find with the thin CA is that because it's very runny, it'll often just dash off into parts that you don't want it and spread across the tread or whatever. So it's a little bit harder to work with, but it will do the job if you're careful with it. But what I prefer to use is a medium or thicker CA glue. Like this one here. This one actually comes from one of the main UK DIY trade supply stores, and it costs about £2 a bottle, much cheaper than the RC glues. But there are some RC specific medium glues out there, or most consumer super glues are on the thicker side. Normally it's the thin stuff that's hard to find in mainstream shops, but the thicker stuff is quite easy to find. So this is the kind of glue that I'm going to be using. The best thing about this glue is it doesn't run all over the place. And the tool that I'm going to be used to apply this glue is my middle finger. I'm going to try very hard not to swear or offend anyone, but I'm going to use my middle finger to apply it to the sidewall. Why my middle finger? Well, because I need my pointer and my thumb for driving the car, and I don't really need the middle finger for that. So I'm going to use the middle finger to apply the glue, and I'll just do it now, and we'll see how we get along. Okay, so hopefully you can see again from the reflectiveness that there's a blob of glue on the tyre and it's not really running away anywhere. So now I'm just going to use my finger to just spread around. I'm going to start low. I'm not going to push right to the edge straight away. As I say, it's easy to put glue on, very hard to take glue off if you go too far. So that's gone about half the way around the tyre. I'll just put another blob on. Okay. Again, just work this around the tyre. Now, it's probably not going to be the best job I've ever done because it's a little bit tricky to do it whilst also keeping out of the way of the camera. So it's probably more of a demonstration of principle rather than a demonstration of fine craftsmanship. But you should be able to see already there's that reflective coating there of the glue. I think I'll just put a little bit more on there and just run another lap around the tyre, and this time I'm going to be thinking more about just getting that glue up onto the shoulder of the tyre, just pushing it a tiny bit above the vertical part of the sidewall, just so we're getting it onto the shoulder, just so it starts to really do the job. Now, kind of goes without saying that you need to experiment when you're at the track. If it's not taking away enough steering, try adding the glue a little bit higher. You'll also find as the race meeting goes on that the glue will wear away, just like the tyres wear down. So it's always worth considering reapplying the glue. When I go to big race meetings, for example, I'd probably factor in a reapplication halfway through the day, probably on the last qualifying round, just to make sure that I don't have any big changes in the car's handling when I go into the finals, which is, you know, one of the worst things you can have when you've had a fantastic session in qualifying and then you put the car down in the final and the tyres don't work the same way and all of a sudden it's all over the place. But there we go. That is an example of just using the medium or thick CA glue just to get a nice coating of glue over the sidewall and just creeping up over the shoulder. I'm going to let that dry naturally because it cures a little bit better if you have the time to let it dry naturally. There are, of course, activators available. There's nothing wrong with using an activator to speed that job up. It tends to leave little white splotches on the glue, but I mean, that's just an aesthetic thing, nothing to worry about. But yeah, this process, very, very useful. Number one way of curing grip roll, almost essential when racing Tamiya Minis on carpet, and a useful thing to know about as well for buggy racing and many other classes too. So hopefully you found this video useful. As ever, if you've got any questions or comments, please do leave them below. If you've enjoyed the video, I'd really appreciate if you click the like button. If you enjoy the channel, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribed. Otherwise, once again, thank you very much for watching.